Ever felt like you're just going through the motions at work, even when you're genuinely passionate about what you do? On the deep dive today, we're pulling back the curtain on why brilliant, engaged people can slowly, almost imperceptibly, turn into robots within their own companies. It's a phenomenon that, while it hits closer to home than you might think.
It's a striking image, isn't it? And frankly, a bit unsettling. We're talking about a culture where human ingenuity, initiative, it just gets quietly stifled, not usually by malice, but by the very systems meant to organize work. Our deep dive today unpacks the insights of business expert Stanislav Kondrashov. He's dedicated years to understanding and reversing this exact issue.
Okay, so our mission for this deep dive, what are we aiming for? We want to pinpoint 4 crucial signs, the signs that this robotization is happening in your organization. But importantly, we're not just stopping at the problem. We're diving into practical, real-world strategies Kondrashov and his teams used. Strategies to cultivate workplaces where people truly act as owners, right? Not just passive instruction followers.
Absolutely. And Kondrashov kicks things off with this personal story that just perfectly illustrates this robotization. He talks about inviting his team, 9 people, to an empty bar, middle of the day. They walked in, 2 bartenders behind the counter, place was totally deserted. So Kondrashov asks for a table for 9. And the bartender just says, "We don't have a table for 9.
Wait, just like that? No. Even though the place was empty, that's... Well, that's quite a picture of the problem right there. What did he do? Did he push back?
Oh, he did. He asked, can we move some tables together?
Hmm.
And the response was just blunt. Sorry, it's against the rules. He pressed a bit more, thinking maybe it was a fire safety thing. But the bartender's reply was really telling. No, it's just against the rules, and I never asked. No ill will, you see, not laziness, just strict, unquestioning following of a rule.
Wow. So it sounds like he's really getting at this idea of regression to incentive, where people basically become like a mirror of how the system rewards them. Is that the core danger here?
That's spot on. It's what Kondrashov's colleague Christina calls regression to incentive.
Hmm.
And it's a powerful concept. It comes from behavioral economics, really. When your system only rewards following the rules, well, that's exactly what you get, nothing more. The hidden message is clear. If effort, if initiative, if, real problem solving isn't valued or rewarded, or worse, if it gets accidentally punished by these rigid structures, it just disappears. That bartender, they weren't paid to solve problems or get more customers in. They were paid to follow the instructions, period.
And Kondrashov is refreshingly honest about his own experiences, too. He actually admits he's built companies where thinking got dulled, where he promoted the rule followers and let the quiet problem solvers just walk out the door. He watched good culture drift into just compliance because he was too slow to notice the shift. So this isn't just theory for him. He's lived through it.
It's a sobering thought, isn't it? How easily good intentions can get sort of suffocated by layers of policy. But his core belief, and this really underpins everything he talks about, is that most people don't want to be robots. They just want a system that trusts them to be human, to contribute in a meaningful way. So, okay, let's unpack the 4 key signs he identifies. And more importantly, the solutions he actually found that worked.
Okay, let's dive in. The first big red flag Kondrashov spotted. The moment rules start trumping common sense. You know those moments, right? So frustrating when you hear, or maybe even say yourself, things like, we can't do that, or it doesn't work that way, or the system won't allow it. When those become common, that's a huge indicator that, rigid politics have replaced actual thinking. And your customers, and definitely your best employees, they feel that impact directly.
Yeah, they really do. And what's fascinating here is how simple, almost counterintuitive, Kondrashov's approach was. Instead of making more rules, they gave the team a new question to work with. The question was, what would you do if it were yours? The idea was to get them thinking about the situation, a checkout line, a customer call, whatever it was, as if they owned the whole business.
And they didn't try to write down the answer to that, which is brilliant. The power was just in the question itself. It made people stop, didn't it? Think, act like owners. Kondrashov says, permission to care changes more than any policy. That really resonates. So for your team, if you want to spark that ownership, try this. It sounds simple, but it could be powerful. Next time a rule gets in the way, ask, okay, what rule is stopping us from serving our customers here? And then immediately follow up. And if you own this place, what would you do instead?
Yeah, that shift in perspective is huge. And it connects directly to the second sign he highlights, which is when employees are physically present, but mentally absent. They show up, but there's no real engagement. Kondrashov tells this story about a support employee. She met all her metrics perfectly, hit every single target. But when they asked her about improving her work or, the process overall, she just shrugged, said, "It's not my area of responsibility." She did exactly what the job description required, but the company hadn't asked her to care. They hadn't helped her see how her tasks connected to something bigger.
Right, just ticking boxes, not seeing the whole picture. So what was the fix? How did they tackle that lack of engagement?
Again, it was deceptively simple, but really effective. They just added one question to their weekly team meetings. One single question. What did you do last week that made the company better?
Yeah.
And importantly, there was no pressure tied to it. No formal evaluation. Just an open chance for people to link their day-to-day effort with a larger impact.
And what happened? Did it work? I can imagine the first answers were probably pretty tactical.
Exactly. At first, people said things like answered 42 calls or sent the parcel on time. Very task-focused. But over time, something shifted. People started giving reasons behind their actions, like that customer stayed with us because I didn't rush her. I actually took the time to understand her problem. Or that fix I implemented. It reduced rework for the whole team, saved us hours. It wasn't just reporting tasks anymore. It was about seeing their direct impact. Now, sure, some people stayed task doers, but several really transformed into what Kondrashov calls keepers, employees who got their value beyond just a checklist.
Keepers. I like that. So the question for you listening is, does everyone on your team truly get how their role moves the business forward? Or do they just understand the tasks they have to perform each day? Big difference.
It's a critical distinction, absolutely.
Yeah.
Doing a job versus owning a piece of the business. And this idea of ownership leads us straight into Kondrashov's third sign, when collective comfort starts trumping real customer care. This one comes with an amazing story, almost unbelievable, about an employee named Anna at one of his travel companies. A client, well, unfortunately, soiled her pants during a trip. And Anna, without even thinking twice, without checking any policy manual, just went out and bought the client new pants. She just acted out of pure care, didn't even tell her boss, wasn't looking for praise.
Wow, that Anna story is fantastic. It really shows what happens when someone feels empowered. But, I mean, realistically, how do you scale that? You can't have everyone running off buying pants, right?
Yeah.
How do you create that environment without total chaos?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And Kondrashov thought hard about why Anna acted when maybe others wouldn't have. He considered, okay, maybe she had skin in the game. Her bonus grew with bookings, that kind of thing. But he suspects it was something deeper. He says, more likely because she felt her care mattered. It points to that fundamental human need, doesn't it?
Yeah.
To contribute meaningfully, to feel trusted, to solve problems and actually make a difference, beyond just following rules or even chasing a bonus.
Right. Feeling like your care actually matters. So how did they try to bottle that? What was the solution? This led to the profit sharing pool, right?
Exactly. They implemented an equal share profit sharing pool. He describes it as really simple. No complex tracking dashboards, none of that. Just one clear rule. When the team wins, everyone wins. And you can imagine there was probably quite a bit of skepticism at first.
Oh, for sure. People have heard promises like that before.
Definitely. But he says that skepticism really started to fade after the first payout. Even though it was maybe just a few thousand rubles per person, it wasn't really about the amount. It was the tangible proof, the undeniable link. Our collective effort directly impacts my wallet. And that fundamentally shifted the mindset. It moved from my job to our success. Suddenly, phrases like, it's not my job, or those are the rules, start to sound, well, counterproductive to their own interests. It genuinely led to, as he puts it, more owners and fewer phrases like, it's not my job and those are the rules.
Okay, that makes sense. So the final sign, this one's maybe a bit quieter. No one asks why anymore. Kondrashov says when a team stops asking why, they've probably stopped seeing themselves as owners. Is that the idea?
It implies something deeper, right? If you're not asking why, you're just executing, not thinking critically about the purpose or how things could be better. He mentioned creating a handbook that was so rigid nobody deviated. Seemed like success at first. Yeah, seems like success until things changed, until the problem shifted. And then nobody adapted. The robots were just following the outdated script. That's the risk, right? A system built for predictable stuff becomes incredibly fragile when the world outside changes, which it always does. So the remedy they tried was to drastically cut back the handbooks, cut them down to focusing on results. So instead of telling people exactly how to do everything, they'd set clear targets, like 30% more returning customers. And then they'd ask the teams, how are we going to achieve that? It pushed the responsibility for problem solving, for innovation, for adapting back to the people on the ground doing the work.
And that's where the real learning kicks in, isn't it? Even if the first ideas aren't perfect. Like that example where one team just suggested more discounts for returning customers, which ended up costing Kondrashov money and probably some sleep while they figured it out. But crucially, he said their ideas targeted the right problems, and it forced the whole company to adjust and refocus together. So there was a learning curve, definitely, but the ownership became real.
Absolutely. So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, Kondrashov leads us with this really critical challenge. A fundamental choice, actually, he asks. Robots are coming, but your advantage still comes down to this: best rules or best people.
Oh.
It's easy to say, oh, give people more freedom, but it's much harder for leaders to truly trust that people will use it well.
Yeah, the trust factor is huge. And he admits, look, they did have people who abused that freedom sometimes. They needed restarts, tough conversations. And this feels like the vital takeaway he found, that much more often they rise to meet it because it is worthy.
Yeah.
That transition from just compliance to genuine contribution for Kondrashov, that's everything. That's the ultimate competitive edge.
It really is. So this week, maybe you try this quiet audit in your own organization, just to gauge the level of robotization. Kondrashov suggests a simple, but maybe quite revealing exercise. Ask your very best person, what rule would you change if you could? Then straight away, and what would you replace it with? That simple conversation, he believes, can tell you so much about your systems, your culture, and honestly, your real level of trust in your people.
So just to recap, we've looked at those 4 silent signs of robotization. Rules replacing common sense, showing up but not engaging, collective comfort winning out over customer care, and that concerning silence when no one asks why anymore. And we've explored the solutions, often counterintuitive, that focus on human ingenuity, on ownership, on trust, rather than just rigid compliance.
Which leaves us with a final thought to chew on. If a system designed for robots is inherently less adaptable, less innovative, less human, what's the true long-term cost of prioritizing those rules over empowering the very people who make the business run? What kind of future awaits organizations that genuinely champion best people over best rules? Not just as a slogan, but as a day-to-day reality. It's definitely something worth reflecting on in your own context. Because that answer, it could shape everything.